Hey everyone, welcome back to In Her Wallet, a podcast helping women around the world take control of their finances for good and build better financial futures one episode at a time. My name is Sofiia. I'm your host, the founder of In Her Wallet, and an accredited investment representative here in Canada. Today, we are chatting about business grants in Canada and how you can leverage financial grants from the government to start and scale your business. I couldn't think of a better guest for this episode than Brianna Blaney, who is the co founder of Pocketed, a digital platform built with the goal of simplifying access to capital available for Canadian business owners. Pocketed has grant matching tool, which is magical. I've used it before myself. That allows you to get access to right funding programs literally in seconds. Since launching in 2020, Pocketed has helped more than 10,000 businesses across Canada access over 80 million in grant funding and tax credits. Brianna, thanks for joining us at In Her Wallet, and I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Sophia. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Before we dive in, let's do a little icebreaker so our community can get to know you a little bit better.
Awesome.
Tell me, what's your go to coffee order?
My go-to coffee order in my kitchen is very simple black coffee that my one-year-old son helps to make. If it's at Starbucks, it's a lot more complicated, which my co-founder incessantly makes fun of me for. And it's delicious.
Tell me, what is that? Because I want to know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when I go to Starbucks, I always order a venti iced, non-fat latte with 3 pumps of vanilla and light ice.
All right. Look at that. I have to try it. 3 pumps of vanilla, though. That must be really sweet.
So it's actually not as sweet as certain syrups. It is sweet, but it's not as sweet. Their normal sweetness level is like 7 or 8 pumps, which is way too much. Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't know that.
It's just like you end up with
Okay.
a sugar migraine. It's too much sugar for me.
I know. Exactly. Totally. I'm with you on the same page. My next question is, what's your favorite movie that you can rewatch again and again?
So there's actually a lot of movies that I really love rewatching again and again. One that I just watched this past weekend that I'm thrilled is on Netflix right now is Crazy Stupid Love. It is such a silly and fun movie.
I will watch that this weekend. I'm so glad you told me about that. And last question I have for you is, if you could move anywhere in the world right now to live, where would that be?
Can I choose an entire continent? Because it would be
Yes.
Europe in general.
Yeah. That's the most popular answer I get. I love it because I would answer the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
First off, Brianna, for those folks who do not know what you're building at Pocketed, can you give us a little elevator pitch of what's going on behind the scenes at Pocketed and also a little bit about yourself? What has your career path been starting a company like that?
Absolutely. So we built Pocketed to help companies across Canada more successfully and easily access the over $5.9 billion available every year in grants, tax credits, and incentives. We offer an intelligent matching platform so that companies can quickly identify the programs that are the right fit and then help them submit winning applications with our funding solutions.
I know that that intelligent tool actually works. I've used it myself. So, absolutely sign off on that. I love it. Now, tell us a little bit more about you. Did you start that company in 2020? What was your background before? What led to that? I actually have a question later on about what inspired you to start
Awesome.
Pocketed. So, don't touch on that yet, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I would say I am an accidental entrepreneur. My co founder, Aria, and I both identify as being somewhat accidental entrepreneurs. And yet, at the same time, we both absolutely love solving problems. And I would say my whole career journey to this point has been driven by problems that I've identified and wanted to solve. It led me to creating my first business back in 2016, which is an HR people solutions firm that is thriving across Canada today and is also what led us to creating Pocketed. So it's been so much fun being able to work with companies. I just absolutely love it. And being able to build alongside brilliant co-founder and team at Pocketed is a highlight.
The way I learned about Pocketed is through the forum because I know you guys actually won the pitch competition and it was so wonderful. Like I was watching it last year live and it was beautiful. And you and your co-founder, you seem so much in sync. So I definitely, you probably will say that yes, that um, does account for the success the company has reached today, right?
Absolutely. I would say we are really well aligned in our big vision and the outcome we're looking to achieve, but we're very different in how we get there. And that's really important. I think if you don't have some element of friction and disagreement, then it can be, isn't always, but it can be a signal that there's a lack of commitment or conviction to some extent. So, yes, we are deeply in sync. We affectionately refer to one another as our second spouses. And I would the world for me is revolves around that woman. She is incredibly brilliant. Aria is a force, and it is a true privilege every day to get to build alongside her and the incredible team of people that are behind the scenes at Pocketed and really deserve all the credit, despite the fact that it's more often than not my face or Aria's face that you see. But yes, we are deeply in sync, even if we don't always agree, and we'll battle hard, but it's always in the spirit of achieving the best outcome for the business and our team.
I love that you speak so highly of your co founder and the team. That's amazing. Okay, back to Pocketed. What's the
Yeah.
general demographic of business owners or companies that you guys help get the funding?
So, with over 10,000 companies across Canada that use the platform today, the demographics, as you can imagine, are broad. One of the things that we're really proud of is that over 48% of our users are women owned businesses. So, that's a huge priority for us as a company is to make sure that the work that we do helps to democratize access to capital for all founders, but with a special emphasis on equity deserving founder groups that have been traditionally underserved, including women, people of color, and persons with disabilities, among many other variables as well. We see a number of trends. I would say there are, of course, lots of different stages of companies that use Pocketed, and you are able to access grants, tax credits, and incentives at all stages of your growth journey. That being said, the types of programs that make sense for your business and that you will be a best fit to access really do depend on the stage of your business. So, for example, if you're an earlier stage company, perhaps you don't have someone on payroll yet, but you are generating some revenue and you're hoping to hire so you can grow your team and add resources to grow faster, do more, then you may be a really great fit to look at a program like Canada Digital Adoption Plan Stream 1, which is a $2,400 micro grant. You may also be a great fit to look at a hiring grant, which will subsidize wages for you to hire either students or youth when that program comes back later this year. And it's a great way for you to accelerate your growth as a company, even when you're early stage. The later stage you get, you can start accessing bigger programs that will fund market research or market expansion outside of Canada, research and development, innovation. And those programs can be substantial in the amount of money that they give you. And so, really, we see people be successful and Pocketed at all stages of their growth. Of course, it just depends on what you're looking for and whether that is available at that moment in time. Um, I wish we were magicians, but we're not. And I would say the biggest frustration we hear from founders and from entrepreneurs that use our platform, business owners, is I logged in and I didn't see exactly what I was hoping to find today. And we go, I hear you and it sucks. And such is the nature of government funding. While the government wants to support job creation and market expansion and innovation and all of those great activities that they're funding, they also don't necessarily adapt to your timelines. So that can be really frustrating when you're in a place where you need capital in your business and what you want doesn't exist in the perfect form today. So working with a grant specialist to help you get creative in the programs that are a fit and not just the programs today, but the programs over the next 6 months to a year that would make sense for you to look at is really critical. So you can be planning proactively and not miss deadlines when those right fit programs do come available.
I like how you already started sprinkling the names of different programs available that people can participate in. And it's also good to know that this funding is available not only to different stages of companies, not only the ones who are just starting and trying to get things going, but also the ones who are already way up and need funding to scale. Okay, very cool. Before we start talking more in depth about how Pocketed actually works and how that tool actually works, let me ask you, what inspired you to start this platform? Because clearly you sound like someone who is very passionate about the mission you guys are pursuing.
Absolutely. We are deeply passionate about the work that we do. And yes, what we do today is a platform to help you access grants, tax credits, and incentives. But our bigger vision, our bigger mission around what we do at Pocketed is how do we eliminate financial barriers for entrepreneurs? That's our goal. Let's eliminate those barriers because we know capital is one of the single biggest barriers to growing and successfully scaling your business. If you are a woman or another equity deserving founder group, that's even more true. We are disproportionately impacted by access to capital or lack thereof. And for us as founders, as two female founders, that was something that we lived intimately in our own founder journeys, building companies both separately and together. When you realize that there is that $5.9 billion every year in Canada, $5.9 billion,
That's an
you
insane
wonder,
figure.
it's wild. You wonder, why the heck is it still so hard to access capital? And that's true of all types of capital, of equity, of debt, of government funding. It's true of everything. And we looked at that and went, let's solve this to start in the government funding space. And that really for us was the impetus behind what got us going down this path of let's help to eliminate financial barriers, and let's do it starting with grants, tax credits, and incentives.
This leads me perfectly to my next question. I was gonna say yes. Recently, I saw a research that said that women get only less than 1% of funding and of investments in general in the industry. So, how does government funding step in and help with that, especially in Canada? You did mention that your focus is on helping female entrepreneurs, besides everyone else that you help. So, let us know how Pocketed ends up in that.
Yeah, to be very clear, our goal is to help all entrepreneurs, but we specifically recognize that in order to level the playing field, we need to help to overcome systemic barriers by directly going after traditionally underserved founder groups. So it
Hmm.
really is all founders. We talk a lot about the woman element because we are women. So it's something very relatable, and we feel comfortable speaking as women about our own lived experience. And I'm always cautious about speaking about other people's lived experiences. But that being said, the stats that I typically see are less than 3% of venture funding goes to women. It's no better when you consider government funding. So I should clarify, there is lots of funding that goes to women, but we are often asked or receive this specific email that says, I'm a woman founder and I'm looking for funding for my business. What programs exist for me as a woman? And our answer is less than 2% of programs in Canada are just for women. Less than
No.
2%. It's literally worse than venture funding. So I share that because our advice to people is always to stop limiting yourself to what we call the lady dollars. Go after all the money. You are equally eligible for all of the other programs. You don't have to limit yourself only to the programs that are labeled just for women. Some of the things that we know are true and that a lot of the research shows about anything to do with women is that, for example, in the investing space, a lot of the time female venture funds are writing smaller checks, or they go through a bizarrely different due diligence process, and they have women funds that write way smaller checks than the traditional venture fund that they're part of. So we across the board say to people, don't limit yourself to the lady dollars. Go after all the damn money.
I love that. I love how you started with the issue, obviously, that exists, but you turned it into a strength. And you basically said that, yes, we all female founders should go after all the money that's available out there. And I haven't heard that from anyone I spoke to about business funding before. So you go, girl. I love that. Okay, let's now talk a bit more in detail about how the matching tool of your platform actually works. You did mention that it's intelligent. What does that mean?
Absolutely. So we have thousands of programs in our database that represent billions of dollars in funding every year. Government funding is kind of gross, if I'm totally honest. It opens, then it closes, the rules change, the description changes, everything changes all the time. My co founder, Aria, I tease her about this. She calls government funding ephemeral. It's ephemeral. And I think it's a hilarious word choice, but appropriately used in this circumstance. And it's a huge part of our value proposition is that instead of having to search through thousands of pages on Google trying to find all the programs, which one of our big four partners will always say, you will never find them all. And they are correct. You will never find them all trying to find them yourself. There are literally thousands of pages on Google. And it's hard because you might have to open a PDF and read through 180 pages to find the one paragraph on page 84 that tells you anything meaningful about the grant or whether it's a fit for your business. So we try to solve for that by centralizing all of that information and overcoming information asymmetry, which contributes to systemic barriers. We try to overcome that by putting it all in one place for you, not just the mumbo jumbo that comes off of the government site, but actually interpreting it for you and doing almost a Coles Note summary of what's relevant. And then based on what's in our database, during your account creation process, you'll tell us about your business. And our algorithms will automatically match you with the programs for which you are eligible. So when you log into Pocketed, you don't see thousands of programs. You see a short list of the programs for which you are likely eligible. I do want a caveat on that, Sophia, because just because you're eligible doesn't mean it's a good fit. So there does still need to be an element of judgment of what are my business strategies? How am I planning on growing? What are my priorities? To determine where you put your energy and your time to actually apply. But it helps you get way further ahead than if you were starting from scratch or from Google.
Totally. When I was looking for funding for a startup who I was helping, actually, because I'm not at the stage where I can get funding right now, I think, but I was just amazed by how difficult it is in the first place to just even find grants. Can you explain to me, why does the government make it so hard?
I don't think they do it intentionally. The reality is that grants and tax credits are less decentralized. Grants are incredibly decentralized. The government, so the federal government doesn't directly administer most of the programs. They distribute their funds to what they call delivery agents. So funding delivery agents. Those delivery agents are responsible for establishing their specific set of rules for that funding, receiving applications, reviewing and processing or adjudicating those applications, selecting the winners, receiving the reporting, and paying out the funds, and then reporting back to the federal government. So it's a ton of work. And the reality is that each of those organizations, those delivery agents, has their own structure, their own process, their own platform that they share the information on. So it's just incredibly fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's intentional, but it is super fragmented. I'll give you an example. There is the student work placement program is everyone's favorite funding to hire student interns for the summer, for example. They actually fund interns all throughout the year in three main intakes, so summer, fall, and winter. But they're distributed right now by more than 18 delivery agents. Each of those delivery agents has their own criteria, their own process, their own timeline, their own reporting requirements, and their own payment schedule.
Why is
They're all
that?
different.
Why is that? Is the government allowing all these different agents to set their own guidelines and rules?
Correct. So the federal government will dictate certain rules. So, for example, the federal government dictates the type of employer that is eligible and the baseline criteria of a job seeker or the intern that you hire. So, for example, your intern that you hire has to be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or refugee enrolled in a post secondary institution here in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the baseline criteria.
Mm-hmm.
But each of the delivery agents can decide that the roles need to be digital, or the roles need to be non-digital or environmental, or they're only going to give funding to organizations that are in the environmental space. So that's where the nuances come in.
Right.
And part of that, again, contributes to the bigger picture agenda of the government. So they want to create jobs, but they also want to advance certain economic sectors. That's why you see so much funding coming in agriculture, clean tech, and life sciences right now. So if you are looking at delivery agents, some of them have specific niche focuses, and that again is part of the government's bigger picture agenda.
I love how we got that. Great explanation. Okay. Now, let me back up a little bit. I did say that I think my company right now does not qualify for granting. And the reason for that is we are incorporated, but we do not have any employees yet. We do not generate revenue yet. And I'm in no place to pay a salary to someone yet. So
Yeah.
I was looking for grants and I couldn't find anything that really matches me. Even that, the very first program that you mentioned, I don't qualify for it yet. So, my question for you is, at what stage should the company be at? Like, what's the minimal criteria in order to successfully secure funding in some type of program?
So your business actually is eligible for funding. Whether it makes sense for you to prioritize, the answer to that might be no. So I'll give you an example. Despite the fact that you're not in a place to pay any sort of full-time salary to somebody, it might make sense for you to hire a 70% subsidized intern and then stack that federal funding with a provincial grant that would basically fund 100% of the wages for that person for the period of time that you employed them. So that is an example of how that could make sense for you to get more people on your team, help you get advertising or whatever it is that would accelerate your revenue growth so that you can indeed access funding. Similarly, you would likely benefit from going after either micro grants. The micro grants that are a fit for your business are different by province, so too much detail to go into right now. Alberta is especially friendly, as is Northern Ontario. But in it, regardless, you can still be going after business competitions, and you'll see those show up in Pocketed as well. And they often come with small awards, whether it's $5,000 or $7,500 or $2,500, small awards, but that is still non-dilutive incentive funding for you. There's other grants that will give you small amounts of money too from private sector, whether it's co-funded with a big corporation. So there is still absolutely money out there for you. You are correct that it's way more limited than once you are seeking to add people to your team. Once you have revenue and you are seeking to accelerate your growth outside of Canada, for example. So when we talk to folks about when to consider funding, at your stage, we say you should be looking at funding when you're ready to hire someone onto your payroll.
Mhm.
100%. That's a no-brainer. You should also be prioritizing competitions and those small micro grants.
Mhm.
They're logical for you to go after. They're a good fit for your business. You're well positioned to win them, especially as someone that is doing impact oriented work around the mission and the audience that you are serving. As you scale up, the programs that you want to access will also scale. So, for example, once you have over $100,000 in revenue, if you are looking at how do I now grow into the States, I want to expand our distribution down there, a little tougher in your business, but in general, somebody wanted to expand outside of Canada, they could apply for a program called Can Export, which will fund up to $50,000 of costs related to being in that international market at trade shows, at conferences, building relationships, etc., and traveling there. So it's a phenomenal program if you're looking to expand. Similarly, you'll want to tap into hiring subsidies if you're doing anything related to innovation. It doesn't really matter what size you're at. As soon as you're spending money, you want to be looking at the SR&ED program, SHRED program. It's often called colloquially. So there's so much money. It really depends on what your priorities are as a business, where you're looking to invest money. If you don't plan to spend money, you are correct. It's very difficult to
Mhm.
access funding. But if you are making business expenditures, you should be looking at grants as part of a long-term strategy.
Now, you did mention different types of programs, and we said there are tax grants, there is funding, there are all the different types of things. But if we were to sum things up, can we kind of divide the grants and funding that government offers into types?
We categorize in a few different ways. So we talk about you just identified one. So grants, tax credits, and incentives is one way that we categorize. For context, $3 billion is in one program, the SHRED program. So about half the money the government distributes every year is in one program. And that's for innovation funding. It's a tax credit that reimburses you for money you spend on eligible activities related to innovation and scientific research. The rest is split between grants and incentives. Some grants are called grants, but they're actually a loan, so they are repayable. But that's a small portion of them. So the other 2.9 billion ish is distributed in those three categories of grants, loans. They are loans, so loans, but government loans with super friendly terms, and those incentives, which can include competitions, etc. So that's how we categorize it in that framework. The other way that we talk about it is that there's 6 key activities that grant funding or government funding will assist you with: hiring, so creating
Mhm.
jobs, training, upskilling your team, anything to do with the environment and sustainability is huge right now,
Mhm.
research and development or innovation, as well as capital expenditures, so buying machinery, buying
Mhm.
equipment, buying, etc. And then The final one is market expansion.
From your experience, what are some of the commonly overlooked grants, incentives, and tax credits in Canada for, let's focus on small businesses?
So I think for small businesses, my biggest observation is that small business owners are really busy. So the biggest challenge they face in accessing grants is literally making the time to apply for them. It's all well and good to know that it's there, but you have to take the step of actually applying. So it's interesting because when it comes to a small business audience, it's less about go after this specific program that is often overlooked and more about when you're considering grants and looking at it proactively versus reactively. Because if it's reactive, it's usually too late to find something that's a good fit and have time to wait for
Mm-hmm.
it. And make sure that when you do identify programs, you actually make the time to apply. If you're not going to do it yourself, that's okay. Then hire someone to do it for you because you're better off keeping 80% of something than 100% of nothing.
Totally. And we should mention that Pocketed actually provides a tool like that. And let's highlight once again that a lot of these programs that government offers, they are not on an ongoing basis. They're open for a period of time, and if you are looking to access that funding, the first thing you probably should do, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is to find out what the timeline for that program is, right?
Exactly. Plan ahead. So if you are looking for funding, anytime you are starting to plan for your business and you're planning for the year, I get asked all the time, how do I use Pocketed? What's the most successful way to approach grants? And my advice is this: when you're doing your annual planning, you are typically looking at where you plan to spend money in your business, where you plan to invest, what your growth goals are. That at that moment in time is a great opportunity for you to look at funding and identify where grants, tax credits, and incentives could support those different initiatives that you're planning for the year. In addition to that, you want to check back at least once a quarter. What's new that maybe I didn't know existed? You can also receive alerts, so that happens through Pocketed as well, but come back at minimum once a quarter. The other big time to be coming back is when you've achieved a milestone in your business, a new revenue threshold, you've added to your head count, you've opened a new location, you're considering launching a new product. Any of those examples of milestones or planned milestones or upcoming milestones, or when you want to be proactively looking back for funding. See what's changed, what's new in the platform. Our database literally updates every day. So, what's new? What's available to you at that moment in time? And if a grant is closed today, there's still an opportunity for you because many grants are one-offs. You are correct. But we show you closed grants and Pocketed because a ton of grants are cyclical. They might be closed today, but opening
Mhm.
again in the new government fiscal year, which begins on April 1st. So you do want to be proactive and you also want to check back regularly because, like anything, to be successful, grants require planning and intention.
I like how you just laid down that roadmap to successfully accessing government funding. Thank you for doing that, Brianna. My last question for you before we wrap up our conversation is, do we have to pay tax on capital that we receive from government?
Yeah, so grants are considered income. So, yes, it would go in your income line item. And if you've got questions about it, I'm not an accountant, but definitely talk to your accountant. But it is recognized as income. So, the answer to that question is yes. Do you have to pay it back? No, but it is recognized as income.
Perfect, Brianna. Thank you for wrapping that up for me. Before we do an outro, let me ask you two questions that I usually ask every guest. And the first one is, what does financial freedom mean to you?
Financial freedom to me means choice. It's one of the most powerful things I think you can have as a person. And one of the things that I hope above everything else I'm able to give to my own children.
What's your advice to every woman who is listening to us right now? What do you think they should do if they want to achieve that freedom and power of choice financially?
I will say that I recognize I come from a place of privilege. So I am constantly checking myself on what it means to have choice. So choice can look like big, grandiose choices of that European vacation versus, staying home on spring break. But it can also look like small things. The small things of, do I work before 9 a.m. when I'm with my kids? Or do I wait to sign into my email until 9 a.m.? And if you're an entrepreneur, those are the types of micro decisions and choices that you make every single day that contribute both to results and outcome, but also your quality of life. So I would say to folks that are looking to identify how you can achieve financial freedom and choice, it is a series of incremental actions and choices that will get you there. I personally have felt so overwhelmed in my life by trying to find the one right answer, that one big choice to get me to the goal that I want to get to. And what's made a big difference for me is acknowledging that it's a series of small choices and incremental actions that get me to that bigger outcome. And that consistently makes it feel more attainable and less overwhelming. So focus on the next step, the next choice, as opposed to getting caught in the trap of what is the one big choice. And hopefully that is something that helps you both make progress, but also feel successful in a more incremental and
I
ongoing
have
way.
goosebumps. You just had such a powerful message that you sent to our audience and to me. I loved it. And I totally agree. Small incremental changes in your life that are positive on what you want to achieve add up with time, like compound interest and compound rewards that we get from investing, and they lead to big results. So totally agree with you. Okay, Brianna, thank you so much for being with us today. How can our community get in touch with you or start using Pocketed?
We would love to welcome all of you to Pocketed. So please, if you are a business owner and you are looking to build or scale your business, we would love to welcome you to the platform. Visit hellopocketed.io. You can use the code in her wallet to access a 40% discount on our software subscription. So again, hellopocketed.io and in her wallet, all one word, to access 40% off your software subscription.
Oh, thank you for doing that. That was a surprise to me. Thank you so much for giving that quote.
Our
Thank you,
pleasure.
thank you, thank you. Brianna, I really appreciate you being with us today in her wallet. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, this is available in video version on YouTube. Please share this with your friends and family and whoever you think might find this episode useful. Once again, I want you to give yourself credit for showing up for yourself and your future, because every time you increase your financial knowledge, you increase what's financially possible for you. Thank you all for being with us today, and I'll see you next week.